Well, Mr. Ricci, thanks for coming on the podcast. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Good to see you, Stephen. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man.
Happy Columbus Day to all our friends in the US. It's actually Thanksgiving up here in Canada. We always get it about 5 or 6 weeks before you guys do.
So I was just talking with a colleague about Canadian Thanksgiving, and I actually I do it was a real thing, but I was trying to feign ignorance and communicate otherwise.
Yeah.
Tell me more about this Canadian Thanksgiving. Like, what's the history behind it?
So I think we've had it since like the mid 1960s. So it's been a holiday in
Okay, so you
Canada for
guys you
longer
guys
than it's been a
appropriated
holiday.
our holiday.
Actually, I think it went the other way around. I think it was a national
Oh,
holiday up here before it was considered a national holiday in the US.
huh.
Um, and so it's not observed the same way, right? Like we
Yeah.
we still see like friends and family, but it's not as big a holiday. I,
Okay.
I think our big holiday for us really is like Christmas and New Year's. That's kind of
Yeah.
when everything shuts down.
Yeah.
And then we get that extra day after Boxing Day, right? To just
Oh, that's
pack up
nice.
all the goodies that the stores didn't sell and
Yeah, that's
put it
right.
back into their inventory somewhere. So
So did you do like turkey and pies today?
oh yeah, 100%. We'll either do turkey or we'll do a ham. And this year we're doing something that's a little bit Italian for my heritage. We're doing porchetta, which is a type of ham. It's like a crispy skin on, and it's a suckling pig, right? So it's still, I mean, that may sound bad for some viewers, but it's still considered a baby. It's
Yeah,
kind of like veal, but it's pork.
that
So
sounds
we're doing
delicious.
that. Oh, it is phenomenal. It is so tasty.
I'll try and get myself invited to Canadian Thanksgiving at the
Oh,
Ricci
anytime.
house at some.
We'd love to have you up here for sure.
So I do. So there's a number of things we want to get into. I think one question I wanted to start with was, and we'll get into your background a little bit. But when you look at kind of the construction tech space, what is some things that you think maybe founders miss as it relates to sales?
Mm. It's a good question. I think sometimes it can be a couple of different things. Um, I think one of the big things is that sales in construction technology, in the construction space in general, I think it's very relationship focused, right?
Mm,
And so if you are looking at conducting business with a GC, with an EPC, they want to know you're going to be there for the long haul. It's not just strictly going to be a transaction because they are putting in a really big investment in time and capital in adopting your solution. And so I think you want to avoid making sure that it's not seen as just a straight transaction. They want you to be a partner. I think the other part is sometimes construction tech firms think they have a phenomenal solution, but they forget that these companies have been doing this kind of work for decades and for generations.
mm,
And so they, I think, undervalue the knowledge and experience that contractors have. And they kind of present this new shiny thing without necessarily understanding the dynamics within the organization they're trying to sell into and how that new shiny thing may or may not benefit what they're doing and kind of undervaluing a little bit of that experience. And so I think you need to be really respectful of the industry that you're looking at selling your solutions into, and you need to really understand kind of where they're at in terms of their maturity curve. And you want to be thoughtful around how you communicate your solutions because at the end of the day, I think anything you deliver needs to be complementary to what they're doing and it needs to improve what they're doing. You don't want to, have it come across as it's kind of like an ego-driven solution. We're doing all
mm.
these amazing things that you guys just can't do. You know what? They've been around a lot longer than you have and they've been successful in doing what they're doing. They understand the industry pretty well. And so I think sometimes a lot of startup founders kind of forget the plot when it comes to the fact that you need to be complimentary and supportive and not necessarily dictating what it is that they should be doing.
Yeah. I mean, I think the to your point, the humility to navigate some of those dynamics that are one
Absolutely.
explicit, but at times not, and require some discovery to actually figure out what's actually going on, I think is key. So maybe we do now back up. What was the background, your background, that kind of allowed you to get that sense of perspective on those navigating those different dynamics in the industry?
So I started my career in the mid '90s. I got out of college and was lucky enough to work for a startup based out of Toronto called Accubid. It had been in business for about 12, 15 years when I had joined, so kind of like a later stage startup. And the individual that hired me, who really ended up being a very strong mentor for me, came from the construction industry. His background was in electrical contracting, and he kind of approached it maybe in a bit of a different way than a lot of tech startups get founded today. He needed a solution to help manage his estimating processes, and the solutions that existed in the market in the early '80s were kind of clunky, and so understanding a lot about the electrical contracting and just construction space in general, but not necessarily being super technology savvy. His thinking was, well, I'll just hire some programmers and I will let them know what it is that I want them to build, how it should work for me, and then they'll build it and then I'll use it. So his initial focus was, self-perform, like a lot of contractors do, right? And so after investing more than he initially thought he was going to invest, as
Hmm.
it always goes during those early days, he ended up building what became the Accubid estimating solution. And initially it was really for his own purpose. And then he started kind of seeing that there was interest from fellow contractors. And so he then pivoted, got out of the electrical contracting business, started Accubid as a kind of a full-time enterprise, and then started to build up the business from there. And so I joined fresh out of college, having a good understanding of technology. I was one of those kids that grew up, building PCs at a very young age, probably a bigger ego than my capabilities were at the time. And I'm thinking, well, I don't really understand the business part. Let me learn that in school. The technology part, I already understand, so I can kind of come out and focus on that kind of melding of business and technology together. And I had a lot to learn, to be very candid, right? And so I started working at Accubid when I was 21. And my first job was as technical support. So you begin to speak with people who are calling when they're in trouble, when they need help, when they can't figure something out. And I think some of that helps you sharpen your empathy skills. I think if you're not empathetic, that's not a job you're going to want to do regardless. So I think I had those qualities,
Yep.
and it really taught me just how to respect the fact that I was helping people who were in a mini crisis, and what they needed was a solution that would support the continuing operation of their business. And you do that a lot. I think when I kind of moved on from a support career into more of a leadership role, I'd managed something like 10,000 incidents over the span of multiple years, dealing with customers from all over the US, Canada, Australia. We even had some customers in Europe.
Hmm.
And it really taught me to just appreciate the work that those individuals do, because the vast majority were fairly small organizations. The term mom and pop is probably a good fit, right? It's a guy who was working out of his
Yep.
van, started his own business, grew it to like 10, 15, 20 trucks. And now he was responsible for something that was a bit more serious than when it was just him. So, um, and from there, I had the fortune of kind of managing different parts of that business. I led the sales organization for a while. Ultimately, I was general manager for a number of years, and then we sold that business to Trimble, and it became part of the Trimble MEP suite of solutions. Um, and so I think that's probably the foundation, is just working with people who are dealing with different challenges, appreciating the fact that what they really needed was a solution to continue to operate their business, and then looking at translating some of those experiences into solution selling, and ultimately into customer success, which is really where I've had the focus of my career probably for the last 15 years, as kind of like a differentiator to help drive growth within a business.
Yeah.
And so that's a little bit of my origin story. I've been fortunate, I've been blessed. I've had the opportunity to work with some really talented people, but I've also had the ability to be mentored by some people who just genuinely cared about growing their staff and had a real passion for ensuring whatever you do is a good fit for the customer. That's critically important.
Yeah, and I think it's unique. I mean, that's a unique origin story in that you've been on the tech side, but you've also played a lot of different roles on the tech side. What is when you look at you were kind of in construction tech since the '80s, not to date you.
Oh,
Uh,
90s. I mean, you can.
'90s.
But yeah, 1995 was when I had joined. It was actually the year that Windows 95 came out, and that was a big pivot for Acubit at the time, released its first Windows version.
Yeah,
And it really accelerated kind of the growth trajectory of the business. And then we moved into client server solutions, started delivering some early stage SaaS solutions through a construction project collaboration platform that we acquired and then grew out.
yeah.
So yeah,
Well, and I guess the question I was going to ask was construction tech since '90s. What's the major? And now you're at Oracle.
I'm at Oracle.
Um,
Yeah, I've been there for almost 10 years.
what is the major? What are some of the major shifts in construction tech? And you can answer this in 100 different ways and kind of pick whatever way you want to answer it. But like you've kind of been there since a very early period of when tech was becoming relevant in construction. And I think at times my generation, me included, we kind of
Mm,
like to think of the beginning of construction tech as like, hey, I graduated in 2008, like 2010 on.
right,
But
right.
obviously that's not true. So like are some of those shifts, major maybe trends or shifts that you've seen?
So I think, I mean, the way I was introduced to the industry was everything was delivered through different point solutions,
Yeah.
right? So you had a solution that focused on estimating, change management, maybe billing. Then you had a solution that delivered project collaboration, document management, electronic RFPs. And then as the industry began to mature, you started new technologies were getting adopted, right? So you kind of shifted away from standalone solutions that stored files on servers to more true enterprise client server applications, and then transitioning away from that into the true enterprise SaaS solution where everything is hosted in the cloud. You know, your IT spend and management really goes down dramatically. The vendor takes care of everything for you. Moving away from kind of those single point solutions into more of like a collaboration suite of solutions. I think Oracle has been really strong on that front through various technologies that it either developed or acquired and then integrated into the Oracle technology stack. And that's one of the interesting things that I found at Oracle is that there are elements that touch the entire enterprise, right? So it's kind of like the database layer, you got
Yeah.
SaaS, you've got the security, you've got the industry applications, and then you've got a suite of those applications that then collaborate and integrate with each other. So today, I think a lot of customers are looking at kind of getting away from those point solutions where it makes sense, and they want really something that's a bit more robust and, end to end connected. And
Mm,
then it's on a secure technology stack, all of those kind of transitions where you've gone from kind of single player to multiplayer mode over the span of 25 years.
yep.
Um, and it's not always been successful, right? There was the dot-com rise, and then there was the bust in the early 2000s, and I think what came out of that is, kind of like a new standard way of driving value, which was really the adoption of SaaS. I think that was the biggest success that came out of that time frame. And you've got, like, remote databases and that kind of, like, infrastructure that has grown up from there. And
Yeah.
now today, everything is kind of about AI and how can you integrate some type of AI agent into your solution to possibly help automate certain workflows, or identify areas of risk, right? To act more like a companion to what you're doing to ensure that you're making good informed decisions as you're leveraging these different tools.
Yeah. So earlier you mentioned customer success. For maybe the listeners who have never really interacted with customer success beyond maybe a customer success manager that in some theory, maybe they didn't really know what they were doing.
Right.
What is customer success?
So at the most basic foundational level, customer success essentially is, um, the focus on helping a customer achieve their goals. You can classify those as their desired outcomes, using your products, using your services, and working with a customer success manager to achieve those goals. So, for example, let's say a customer invests in an enterprise SaaS solution for project collaboration, and they have certain things that they want to achieve over the first year, 2, 3 of the deployment and use of that software. Perhaps they want to improve the way they do design reviews, right? And so they want to transition from a process that used to take a week or two, and that was very laborious, where you had to exchange files back and forth, into more of a structured workflow that you can get done in maybe 2 or 3 days. And the documents and files are all hosted on the same platform. There's a central source of truth. And so you, as a customer success manager, want to help the customer kind of identify what those goals are, put together a timeline that those goals can be achieved in. And then as the customer achieves those goals and they get more mature in the adoption of your solution, you then start to get new and different goals because they're ever evolving. And so the real value around customer success is you really engage with the customer to ensure that they're not just achieving success today, but they're achieving success 2, 3 years down the road. And ideally, what's happened is they've become better at what they do. They've identified different functionality and new things that they need to look at, either automating or digitizing and kind of delivering through the right kind of solution. And hopefully, as a vendor, you have a solution that can then fit that gap that was identified.
Yeah.
And so you see expansion opportunities over the course of the engagement with the customer. You both grow, right? So fundamentally, that's what customer success is. It's a model that was really pioneered by Salesforce in the early 2000s.
Mm.
What they found was when they put someone in charge of helping a customer achieve their goals, that the customer was more likely to achieve those goals because the
Huh.
individual kept them on track. They really understood the intricacies of the solution. They were able to provide the right advice and guidance. And it's a subtle way of selling. You're really selling yourself as the business. You're selling what your solution can do because solutions get more and more sophisticated over time. It's not fair or reasonable for a customer to expect they're going to understand all of the intricacies of the
Yeah.
solutions that you deliver. And that's why a customer success manager can really help kind of drive that customer success model. Fundamentally, you want to help them achieve success. That's what it is, and the customer defines what that outcome is going to be.
Well, it seems like customer success has seen kind of an explosion in growth that kind of mirrors probably the investment in construction tech and all these different industries. And then it seems also that depending on the economic cycle and where we are, customer success has been either more or less popular, depending on maybe the VC backing that firm. What do you think is something that founders sometimes miss about CS in terms of
Mm.
how they deploy or leverage CS?
I think sometimes founders make the assumption that a salesperson can also handle the customer success function,
Mm,
and that in reality they are two distinct roles, and you're better served in making an investment in an individual that can help drive adoption with the customer, namely the customer success manager, keeping the sales executive focused on additional sales. The benefit there is the sales executive can get involved and should have a strong relationship with the customer, but quite often the customer will see the sales executive as someone who's trying to sell me more.
yeah,
And the customer success manager really has a different form of relationship. It's really that of the trusted advisor. Ultimately, sometimes those timeline horizons are different between a sales executive and a CSM, right? Sales executive wants the customer to adopt everything immediately, so that they can sell more. And a customer
yeah,
success manager understands that the adoption curve really ties into the requirements that the customer has with respect to the solution that they're using. And sometimes those curves can be, super linear and fast. Sometimes they may take a little bit longer. But as the CSM, the role really is to ensure that you're stewarding the customer through the process. Whereas the salesperson, like I said, their focus is going to be a little bit different. And so what I like to see happen is once a salesperson has sold into a company, continue to maintain that strong relationship with the customer, really allow the customer success manager to become that strategic partner to help drive and support adoption. A good customer success manager will identify opportunities for expansion as they're working with customers, and that's really where the salesperson can get involved.
mm,
And in many cases, that that opportunity is a little bit warmer, right? Because the CSM has already fostered a relationship around why there's value in terms of adopting something else.
yeah,
And so I think that's kind of where sometimes they assume the salesperson can kind of handle all of it. And really, the salesperson has a good focus, which is getting ideally net new and supporting the expansion. And then the CSM is about adoption, getting the customer to a stage where they're going to renew. And hopefully, as they've grown, we've identified areas where they can benefit from more of our solutions.
So here's a scenario. You're the CEO of maybe a Series B VC backed construction tech SaaS company.
Mm.
Um, does CS own renewals?
Mm. Yes. So CS does own renewals. In a fairly mature organization, customer success should be part of revenue, right? So it should be part of either a chief customer officer, a chief revenue officer. They should report into the same executive.
Mm,
The CSM should be responsible for ensuring that the customer has attained their goals, or at the very least that the goals are identified and there's a reasonable timeline to attain them. There should be no surprise to the customer when there is a renewal upcoming. That conversation should have taken place well before you get into the renewal cycle. You want to ensure the customer has achieved what they want to achieve to feel good about that renewal. And where I would see the salesperson getting involved, if needed, is some type of commercial negotiation. But ultimately, it is a partnership between sales and CSM. But from a customer success perspective, yes, we need to own that renewal and ensuring the customer has achieved their outcomes so that they are going to renew. And there's different mechanics around it, right? You want to be able to track how healthy the customer engagement is. You want to identify risk early so you can help mitigate the risk with the customer.
yeah.
And all those elements feed into a successful.
So, you're at Oracle, and my understanding is, you're building kind of frameworks and systems that enable other kind of business units around maybe the category of CS. What does CS look like at a global entity like Oracle?
Mm. It is very much the same as a robust startup. So
Mm,
I've been at Oracle now for about 9 years. For a period of time, I led various CSM teams that were, market and customer focused. The last 3 years, I've moved into a global lead for our program office. So I lead our program office and I lead our operations for our line of business. And so, we have the same challenges that a startup would have, right? So it's about ensuring that the customer has the right level of quality assigned to them. Typically, that's commensurate with their investment, right? So if they've invested hypothetically $1 million compared to $5,000, the level of service is going to be different, right? It's kind of
yeah,
like when you go on a plane and you buy a first class ticket, you get a different level of service. That doesn't mean that we still don't care and feed kind of some of the smaller customers. We of course do, but the amount of dedicated service tends to be a bit different. You
yeah.
work with more of a pooled model as opposed to a dedicated CSM. But fundamentally, it's really about, do we understand what the customer's goals are? Have we put together a meaningful plan and a reasonable timeline to help them achieve those goals? Are we helping them navigate the different areas of the business that they interact with on the Oracle side to achieve those goals? And are we keeping ourselves and the customer honest about where we're at in terms of attaining those goals? And so I think I would say our line of business is probably one of the more advanced areas with respect to like true customer success within Oracle because we've been small and scrappy and we've been afforded the latitude of really kind of acting as a startup. That's
Mm,
one of the interesting things about Oracle, right? If you deliver on your sales results, leadership does give you the confidence to, keep driving forward on your business plan to achieve success.
mm,
And that's not different than any other large company of this scale.
yeah.
We had similar experience at Trimble, right? So, but I think we've over the last 3 years really kind of standardized the way we look at going to market with our customers, ensuring they have the right level of coverage, ensuring we have a good understanding of what they're trying to achieve, that we document those things. We have regular catch ups. We track milestones to achieving those goals. Again, no surprise around renewal time, that the customer knows a renewal is coming up, and that we've empowered them with different success stories because we'll track it for them of the things that they've achieved over the 2-3 years that they've been using our solution, so that when they go back and have those conversations internally, they can also showcase the success that they've had, right? And that helps them continue to advocate for the use of our solutions. And the
Mm.
Oracle technology stack is pretty robust. So we're
Yeah, it is.
delivering a whole lot of value to our customers.
So maybe taking the Oracle hat off for a second, because I feel like answering this question with it on might be difficult. If you were to say which one AI is going to impact or disrupt more, sales or customer success, just generally, maybe within the
Sure.
category of construction tech, uh, which maybe would you put your money on?
I don't know if I would necessarily put my money on either sales or customer success. I think the area where AI will be a very large disruptor is going to be more at the support level.
Mm,
And so I think as you build more intelligent support agents who can work with a customer to kind of navigate through a problem tree to get to a resolution, I think one of the areas that will be affected, and I don't think I'm the only kind of individual in this space that's made this comment. So, will most likely be kind of those entry level support jobs that were, kind of there to kind of track initial information, file a ticket, and then escalate up. And that's not an Oracle thing. That's just an industry thing.
yeah,
So I think that's one area where I see that there will be some level of disruption. Hard to say what it is.
right,
Quite often, whenever this type of disruption happens, what you end up finding is that it empowers individuals to increase their overall work capacity,
yeah,
right? So instead of having to triage, 20, 30 customers because I'm interacting with these customers regularly during the day, I may be in a position to triage 2x that or 3x that
yeah,
because the triage process has actually gone through some type of AI support agent. Again, hypothetical. I'm not saying that that's happening here or possibly other businesses, but I think that that's where we'll start to see some level of disruption within the space. And then in general, I think in the tech sector, not unique to construction tech, is that some entry level engineering jobs for kids coming right out of school may be again kind of affected by
yeah,
different AI agents that can like, do some initial coding, right? It's kind of that really again entry level jobs.
yeah,
I think there's risk there because I think entry level jobs are super important. Like that's where you learn, right? That's where you learn what
yeah.
works, what doesn't. That's where you learn that if you make a mistake, here's how you address it. So um
Well,
I
that's what I was going to say was like, that's your
yeah,
origin story, right? You came from the
right.
support side, you
100%.
learned the business
Yep.
and in a very frontline manner. And I think we all have a derivation of that story that we could tell ourselves. And I think you're right. I'm hearing the same thing, which is around, entry level jobs where it's going to be most impacted. I think if you pull on that thread, it's pretty interesting to think, how do you get a career if we remove the first step of the
Yep.
ladder for each industry?
I think what may happen is that the first step is bigger step.
Mm,
So you may be starting at what we considered entry level 15, 20, 25 years ago may not be what entry level looks like moving
yeah,
forward. And so what that could mean is that a lot of the kids coming out of school will be empowered through these different AI agents that they've leveraged through school and through their own education. So they'll be able to use these tools and will expect the use of these tools as they move into entry level jobs.
yeah,
And their capacity increases significantly over what an entry level individual was able to do just 10 years ago.
mm.
So in the hopeful world, which I think I'm kind of a hopeful guy. That's where I really hope that it's going to, drive the future of the individuals coming into the tech space in general, but into the workforce overall, because AI is a disruptor in really all areas. And so I think learning how to understand and use those tools to your advantage will position you to be better equipped to just handle what comes next. And that's not different than any other type of industry revolution that we've seen going back to the start of the Industrial Revolution 125 years ago.
Yeah,
People just learned to do new and different things that perhaps at the time they wouldn't have even fathomed. And so again, I'm hopeful. I've got a child, so I'm always hopeful for her future. And there's things that I see that I think that is definitely one possible outcome, and that's what I hope it's going to be.
yeah, it as well. I think we talked about this before, but the idea of driving towards outcomes for these industries that are good for humans, I think is obviously important, and I don't think it's always top of mind for everyone. I think
Yeah.
somehow we seem to put on our commercial hats before we do our team humanity hats. But
That is totally fair, and I think, I do think though long term we'd be better served in wearing that humanity hat because at least my experience has been when you trust in people, more often than not, you have a much better outcome than just trusting in a machine.
yeah, yeah, and I think it's I've got 3 boys. You got a daughter, and I've also had a daughter.
That's right.
So many kids, but yeah, you start to think about what does the next 10, 15 years look like, and obviously we can't really project that far out, but it will be interesting to see how we navigate some of these dynamics. I think your point about that first rung just being kind of a different step up is an interesting one because I think I could see that. Um, I am interested if you look at, you have a background in sales, you've kind of led organizations from a GM spot, you've led large teams in customer success. What are some of Does it take a different style of leadership to lead those different teams?
I think I've always had a consistent style. And
Mm,
so I mean, I'm a big believer in just treating people with respect in servant-based leadership. That's a huge thing for me.
mm,
Kind of like the eaters eat last mentality, I think is a really good one. And that's the way I've kind of looked at um, working with people, either if they report into me or if they don't, right? Because I
yeah,
think you can still be a leader without necessarily having to have direct reports. Um, but I think fundamentally, if you treat people the way you want to be treated, respectfully, with positive and negative feedback as it's required in a very candid way, also a big fan of radical candor, that you will end up getting the best out of people. And and that's not a philosophy that I invented. I would say that was my experience when I started my career. Going back to my first job, the individual that hired me was probably one of the strongest mentors I've ever had. I've had two that I would say really good mentors, probably three as of today. That the thing that was common is that they looked at people as people
mm,
first, and what that meant is that if someone was doing something well, they would provide that good positive feedback. If someone needed to do something better, they would provide that constructive feedback. And they also looked for that kind of feedback in the individuals that reported to them. They would ask, "How am I doing for you? What can I do better? What do you think I need to focus on that I'm not focused on?" And that helped them understand where their priorities should be. It also helped them to then give the I won't say consent, support to those individuals to then kind of step up and take over areas of responsibilities that perhaps they were doing and they just weren't very good at doing because they didn't enjoy it.
yeah.
And so for me, that's the style that I really liked and gravitated towards. And so I looked at emulating that as much as I could. I also like to sleep at night. And so if I treat someone the way I want to be treated, I'll more likely go to bed happy. And that's something that's important for me. And I want a good home life. I don't want to take negative things home,
Yeah.
right? So
I mean, they all seem like basics, but you're right. And as someone who has worked for you and reported into you, you practice what you preach, and you create a culture that I think people are able to achieve and leverage their own skill sets to achieve. And so I think there's something to this idea of, yeah, how am I in my leadership position? How can I use that to unlock your ability to be successful in that role? And I think it shouldn't be as unique as it is, but I think it is a unique take on leadership.
it's something that's super important. To me, the best satisfaction I've had throughout my career is working with and mentoring people and watching them grow, watching them outgrow what they were doing, and either helping them move into a different type of position that they really wanted to get into, a leadership position, or even taking over the position I was doing so I could move on and do something else. Like that's been the most gratifying thing for me throughout the last 25 years.
Yeah.
Well, longer now, 30 years. Wow. that, I can kind of look back and name off individuals I've worked with, you being one of them, that I've
Mm,
just seen so much talent and potential, and then seeing the growth is amazingly like rewarding. And I've built large teams, I've scaled up revenue models, I've done all those things, and I've had a good level of success. But for me, the ability to be able to influence and change someone's life for the better has been the biggest satisfaction I've had throughout my last 30 years.
mm. Yeah, it's special. And I think that's felt by the people that work for you. So, I mean, before this turns into a mutual high five, we, but I do think that there is something to that. And I think if we were to translate that into advice to the next generation, so maybe assuming that we're, speaking to a group of either recent grads or young, maybe, operators in the field, PM superintendents, um, who maybe don't have those mentors,
Mm,
how would you say, and I think, maybe I'll start. I think you can learn as much from the bad leaders around you as you can from the good leaders, right? I guess would that be your
100%.
perspective as well?
Absolutely. And I've had bad leaders,
Yeah.
and as we all have, right? And the thing that you learn, at least the thing that I learned, is to insulate my team from those bad leaders, because bad leaders have the ability to then kind of drive toxicity into high performing teams. And so as a leader, one of the challenges you will face when you are in that situation is, how do I protect my folks from bad leaders? Um, and you will learn a lot. You'll learn about what you don't want to do, what you don't want to have done to you, and that will help shape who you are as a leader. So do look at that as a learning opportunity. The reality is, if you're working for a leader who's not a good leader, ultimately you're either going to have to make a choice as to whether or not you want to continue to report into that leader, or if you're lucky enough, they'll move on and do something else. It,
Mm,
it doesn't always kind of work out that way. So sometimes it's a hard choice, and sometimes the choice gets made for you. I think on the flip side of that, if you're new to any job you're doing, I think look at learning a lot, ask a lot of questions. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. Don't be afraid to admit when you've made a mistake. Don't make the mistake more than once. Be willing to accept constructive feedback and be willing to give it in a respectful way. And I think those are the foundational things that I would say to anyone getting into any career. But
yeah.
I think it rings true for the construction space as well. And it's a tough business,
Yeah.
right? Like you're out in the field. It could be hot. It could be cold. You're out there for 12 hours a day. You're dealing with a lot of different trades. You're dealing with really expensive challenges and problems that you're trying to solve. Try and remember that everyone who's out there is trying to do the same thing,
Yeah.
and that I think if you approach it in that way, that you'll be more likely to build good, solid relationships where there's a level of trust between yourself and whoever else you're working with or for,
Yeah.
and you will be more likely to have success. Not always, but you'll be more likely to.
Did you have any books in addition to mentors that help kind of shape your perspective on how to
Yeah,
lead
there's
or
been
how to
some
manage?
interesting books around customer success management. There was a book that was written by Lincoln Murphy that came out several years ago called Customer Success, which I think is a great book. Lincoln is a phenomenal subject matter expertise and really one of the pioneers around kind of codifying what customer success management is. So I would highly
Yeah.
recommend anything that he's written. I would also recommend books like, about radical candor. I think Kim Smith, if I remember, is the author's name, who kind of came up with that model, and I think it's phenomenal, right? Like I think I would say when I was younger, one of the things that I really tried to do well was to accept constructive feedback from people, and I found that if I respected them, that feedback really hit home.
Mm,
And so part of that was, ensuring that I built a good relationship with those individuals, but learning how to give that feedback to others in a very direct way, I think was something that was a game changer for me and for the individuals that I led or just collaborated with.
mm.
Because you're not doing anyone a favor if you're not being honest with how they're doing, especially if you have the ability to help them improve what they're doing. I think you
Yeah.
you owe it to them to be honest and supportive, not mean. That's not what radical candor is, right? It's about providing honest, direct feedback in a timely way, in a respectful way, and willing to accept it yourself. And if you can preach those things and live those things, then you'll learn from it, and the individual you're trying to help mentor will learn as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I had a mentor at some point recommend actually this book, Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends
Oh
and
yeah,
Influence People. I mean, I
yeah.
think like, and maybe I don't think this is suggested reading in any level, but it really should be. I mean, just how to navigate personalities and how to deal with different dynamics. And so yeah, I think mainly just read, like go read some
It
books.
it is super important. I think
Yeah.
no, it really is, and there's such a variety of different things that you can look at absorbing from just
Mm,
management theory, um, to like relationship and psychology, which I think plays a role in any type of like customer relationship type of job.
yeah.
Because ultimately, whether it's customer success, whether it's sales, any type of public facing job where you're dealing with the customer directly, you really need to have an appreciation for who they are. And sometimes different books around psychology can help with some of that stuff too. The 7 habits of highly effective people, again, another kind of staple on that front.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think while I think books are great, it helps you better understand certain theories. Getting out there and just working with people and collaborating with people and um, ensuring that you guys are aligned in what you're trying to achieve, I think is kind of one of the biggest things that people have to do. And it's become harder. I think the
Right.
last 5, 6 years, right? Especially post pandemic, we've gotten so used to living and working in our little silos sometimes
Yeah.
that people don't get out as much. That's not the case for construction sites, obviously, but
Mhm.
in the tech sector, that happens a lot. And so
Yeah.
I think it's important to still be out there and ensuring that you're building relationships with the people that you're trying to support.
Well, and I think I've always been fascinated by, I mean, you started kind of in construction tech and you've stayed in construction tech in a lot of different roles. Um, I had, you know, people I worked with that are now on the owner side. I had owners that are now vendors. It's a fairly small industry, and so I think, you know, even just like developing relationships with the people around you, um, even if it's not always altruistic, you're going to interact with these people again, and
You will.
so developing solid relationships with everyone, and considering how you can add value to the people around you, I think is a decent kind of way to live. What if you were to think about kind of customer centricity? Because I think there's also a challenge with, and we've maybe interacted with these kinds of companies, which is they have a customer success team, which is great to work with. But then if you interact with any other part of the company, there's a very different kind of culture. And I guess when you think about customer centricity, is it the role, or I guess maybe the hope that the customer success team kind of radiates customer centricity and that impacts the culture of that company? Or how do you think about that? I guess that's
Yeah.
a big question.
It is, and I think it's an important question, and I have seen this a lot where you have that customer success kind of client service focused organization that is hyper focused on the customers' success, on them attaining their goals, and then the rest of the business not so much, right? And I think true customer success means that the customer mindset exists throughout the entire organization. And customer success isn't just a single solitary function run by a customer success management team. Customer success really is a holistic approach to how you're going to deal with the customer. So if the customer has certain goals that they need to achieve and your products and solutions aren't helping them achieve those goals because it's either missing functionality or it's missing an integration point with another system, again, various hypotheticals, then from a customer success perspective, you're failing that customer. Right. Customer success is something that should be embraced across the entire enterprise, from the
Mm,
people that build your products to the people that sell your products to the people that service your products. And when when something happens, it needs to be all hands on deck to ensure that whatever the customer is running into, if it's something that we need to resolve within our solution, that we will look at ways of doing so
Yeah.
across the entire, you know, lines of business within your organization. And I've been lucky. I've worked for companies where that has been predominantly the case, from Accubid to Trimble to Oracle. I've worked for some small companies where that really wasn't the case, and I didn't stay there very long because the culture just didn't gel with my philosophy on that.
Yeah.
And so I think, yeah, customer success really is more of a corporate mindset as opposed to just a discrete function. And if you treat it as a discrete function, your mileage is going to vary.
Yeah. So maybe another hypothetical. Same No, we'll take it back to Series A. Series A, we'll just say maybe a 5 million ARR kind of a year company, SaaS, construction tech. Um, the heart of the question is, if a founder is trying to navigate when to hire a CS person, or when to kind of integrate CS into their kind of go to market strategy, is there a milestone that triggers kind of a thought in your head, or how would you think about when to deploy CS internally?
So let's say they're at a 5 million annual run rate.
Hmm.
Maybe they're happy with that. Maybe they're happy with where they're at. Maybe their goal isn't like hyper growth. Maybe what they want is kind of stability over the next couple of years. Um, I would say hire a customer success manager just to kind of maintain that level of growth or that level of consistency. If they really are focused on wanting to kind of hyperscale and grow and want to drive expansion, hire a customer success manager. If they are starting out as a brand new startup, they have $0 in sales, hire a salesperson first, hire some marketing support, hire a customer success manager. My belief is that CS and CSM really have a place at any stage of the customer of the startup's life cycle. It
Yeah.
just the variation is how you're going to leverage them, and the scale and number of individuals that you need within those various roles.
Hmm.
And so what I would want to see is I'd want to see our products getting marketed. I'd want to see visibility, and I'd want to see brand awareness, and I'd want to see buzz. I'd want to see our salespeople then getting out there and, knocking on doors, figuratively speaking, digitally these days,
Hmm.
building relationships, starting to sell. And then as we start to get sales, I'd want to see a customer success manager, even if it's just one, who's going to own that customer relationship, drive adoption. Again, so our sales staff, even if it's just one, can focus on selling. In the early days of a very small startup, that could be the founder CEO who's doing all those things. That's perfectly normal, right? But then as you start to get some traction, it's time to bring in some additional talent.
So here's one bonus question. Um, Domain expert that you train kind of CS principles, or kind of industry agnostic kind of CS professional who you kind of teach the domain?
I think there's value in both. Ultimately, I think it comes down to the individual that you are
Yeah.
looking to hire for the role. There are individuals that I have interviewed that didn't know my industry, but were so good in terms of the customer success practice that I brought them on board because I could teach them the other parts that they needed to know, especially if they were already tech savvy and had come from a previous CS background role. There are others that I've hired out of industry because they understood the industry so well and had the right empathetic qualities that I could teach the customer success discipline to.
Mm,
And so I don't think it's a hard and fast, binary answer one way or the
yeah.
other, 0 or 1. I really think it comes down to the individual that you're interviewing and what skills do they bring to the table that can most benefit what it is that you're trying to achieve.
He is to work for Al. I think that's the answer. Go find a job with Al.
I've had great
Uh,
great success with both, right? Like
yeah.
I've loved hiring folks from industry, but those folks needed to have the kind of empathy and the kind of drive
Yeah.
to want to ensure customers going to meet their goals. And sometimes that means you have to hold the customer accountable and keep them honest with respect to
Yeah.
what they're doing as well.
Right.
And I've hired individuals that didn't have that industry expertise, but understood the value of empathy and supporting and working with customers, and were super bright and were able to learn how our solutions could benefit what customers in the industry were trying to do.
Hmm. Well, I want to be respectful of your time, so I'm gonna twist this last question that we normally ask, make it a little bit different. Um, you are speaking to like 100 different construction tech founders of different stages. What's your message to them?
Wow, that's a really powerful question. I'd love to get a room full of
Yeah, yeah.
100 founders.
You're like,
I
how long
think
do I have?
well, so I think, there's this experience that I had when I first went into college, right? Where I was in a class and the professor looked at me and he goes, "Look to your left, look to your right. One of you is not gonna be here in the next 18 months." And with any type of, founder, that's something to
Yeah,
just be very, very mindful of.
yeah,
How do you then ensure you're still here after 18 months? And
yeah.
I think the way you do that is, A, ensure the solution you're bringing is real and it delivers value, like real value, not hypothetical value
Mm,
to the market that you're trying to serve. B, be mindful and respectful of what it is that the individuals you're trying to sell to are doing and what their challenges are and what they're trying to achieve, and ensure what you deliver aligns with that. And then C, ensure that they have the right kind of support they need from you to be successful, right? I mean, that's at a very high level. Obviously, you need to get your financing secured. You need to have a robust business plan. You want to ensure your go to market makes sense, all of those things. But at the most foundational level, for you to still be here in 18 months, you need to really focus on what I believe are those kind of key three things as foundational elements of
huh.
your business.
There's a retail company called Brandless that came out maybe 5 or 6 years ago, maybe longer
Okay.
than that. And it's here in the US. And the whole thing was they were going to sell grocery products without any marketing.
Okay.
And it was kind of responding to this, I would say, oversaturation of just marketing messaging here in the US around products. And there being a group of people, including myself, who's just like, okay, let's get to what it actually is. I think construction tech is kind of ready for that moment. I want to see a tech company build a product, no marketing. There's that could be your marketing. We're not gonna spend a dime on marketing and see how well they can do. But I picked up on one very minute elements of what you mentioned.
No, I think it's super interesting, like around the whole marketing in general. I think the best marketing that I've ever seen us do in the different businesses that I've been in is about educating the market. And I mean, like in some cases, really educating the market, like actually
Yeah,
running educational
yeah,
programs,
100%. Yeah,
right? And building the next generation of like evangelists for you. You
yeah.
you need a certain level of recognition to just, kind of be seen out there, yes. But I do believe investing in teaching is one of the best ways to look at like growing your own market share. And whenever I've done that, I've seen great success.
I like that. Like value for value.
Said.
I think that
It
was
is the best
yeah.
marketing you can do. You're delivering something of value. They're learning something, and in the process, they're learning how to adopt what it is that you're doing. Not only your solutions, but your philosophy around using those solutions for the betterment of their own business. I think if
Yeah.
more tech companies did that, they'd see greater returns.
Yeah, Brandless did go out of business a couple years ago, just as
Well,
a
I'm kind
little
of
bit
wondering what
of
was the differentiator between brandless and like a store brand,
Yeah,
right?
no, there was a couple of
Yeah,
holes in their business
it sounds
model,
like it.
but
Yeah.
Al, this is a lot of fun. Thanks for joining me, man. Anything else before
Good
we
to be
go?
here. Thank you for having me. No, I really enjoyed this, and hopefully you'll have me back someday.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I'm sure there's probably some turkey left, so you'll just go back to eat your turkey for dinner, huh?
No, no, porchetta today, porchetta.
Oh, porchetta. You didn't do any turkey? No turkey?
No, no, no turkey.
Okay,
We'll
just
we'll do that
porchetta.
at on Christmas.
What will you do anything on our Thanksgiving?
No, work.
Just work. Okay, I'll send my work your way on that day. All right, thanks,
Here
Al.
you go. Take care, buddy.